Welcome back to the channel. So I need to ask you something. How would you feel about visiting a place where dead bodies are just sitting there, not buried, not cremated, just laid out in the open air? Flesh still on the bones, skulls lined up in neat rows, some of them fresh, some of them decades old, all of them just sitting there under a tree, exposed to the elements. And here's the thing that makes it even more disturbing. They don't smell at all. Hundreds of corpses decomposing in tropical heat, and there's no smell of rot, no stench of decay, just the faint scent of flowers. I'm talking about Trunyan village in Bali, Indonesia. And if you're Indonesian, especially if you're Balinese, you already know what I'm about to say. You've heard the stories, you know the warnings. Maybe you've even been there during the day when it's relatively safe, when the tourists are around and the sun is high, but you'd never go at night because that's when the dead wake up. That's when they walk. Trunyan is on the eastern shore of Lake Batur in Bali. It's remote. You can't drive there. The only way in is by boat across the lake. The village itself is home to the Bali Aga people, the original Balinese. They were there before Hinduism fully took over the island. Their traditions are older, darker, different from the rest of Bali. And one of those traditions is their treatment of the dead. While the rest of Bali cremates their dead in elaborate ceremonies, the people of Trunyan don't burn their dead. They don't bury them. They take the bodies to a specific location called Kuburan Trunyan, the Trunyan Cemetery, and they leave them there, in the open, under a sacred tree called the Taru Menyan. The tree is ancient, massive. Its roots spread across the cemetery like veins, and according to local belief, the tree has a power. It absorbs the smell of decomposition. It neutralizes the rot. That's why you can walk through a field of corpses and smell nothing but a sweet floral scent. Science can't explain it. Botanists have studied the Taru Menyan tree. They can't find any chemical compound that would prevent or mask the smell of decay. The tree is unique to that location. It doesn't grow anywhere else in Bali. And when people try to transplant cuttings, they die. So either the tree really does have some supernatural property, or something else is happening in Trunyan that keeps the dead from smelling. And honestly, I'm not sure which explanation is more terrifying. Tonight, I'm going to share 5 accounts from people who've been to Trunyan. Some went during the day, some went at night, and some of them never should have gone at all. Let's start with the cemetery itself, because you need to understand what it looks like, what it feels like. Before we get into the stories, Kuburan Trunyan is about a 10-minute walk from the main village. You follow a narrow path along the lakeshore. The path is lined with bamboo and palm trees. It's humid, hot, the kind of heat that presses down on you like a wet blanket. When you reach the cemetery, the first thing you see is the tree, the Taru Menyan. It's enormous, maybe 30 meters tall, with a canopy that spreads out like an umbrella, covering most of the cemetery in shadow. Under the tree, arranged in a semicircle, are the bodies, or what's left of them. Some are recent, flesh still visible, features still recognizable. Others are just bones, skulls stacked in neat rows, femurs, ribs, all of it just sitting there on the ground, protected by nothing but bamboo cages to keep animals away. There are usually between 7 and 11 bodies at any given time. When a new body is brought, they remove the oldest skeleton to make room. The bones are placed in a pit or arranged with the other skulls. The cycle continues. Death, decay, removal, repeat. It's not a tourist trap. Not really. Locals discourage visitors. They'll take you if you insist, if you pay, but they'll warn you. Don't touch anything. Don't disrespect the dead. Don't take anything with you. And don't, under any circumstances, stay after dark, because the dead in Trunyan aren't just resting, they're waiting. Our first story comes from 2015. A tourist from Australia, let's call him James, visited Trunyan during a trip to Bali. He hired a local guide to take him across the lake and show him the cemetery. It was midday, sunny, lots of other tourists around. James thought it would be interesting, cultural, educational. The guide took him to the cemetery, explained the tradition, showed him the bodies. James took photos, respectful ones. He didn't get too close, didn't touch anything. He was there for maybe 20 minutes, then they left. That night, James was staying at a guest house in Kintamani, about 30 minutes away from the lake. He went to bed around 11 p.m. He was exhausted from the day of touring. Around 2 a.m., he woke up. He doesn't know why. He just woke up suddenly, completely alert, and he felt cold, which was weird because it's never cold in Bali, even at night, even at altitude. He sat up in bed and looked toward the window. His room was on the second floor. The window was open. No glass, just wooden shutters propped open for air. And standing outside the window, floating at eye level 2 stories above the ground, was a figure. It was a man, or had been a man. The face was skeletal, skin pulled tight over bone, eye sockets empty, but the mouth was moving, opening and closing, like it was trying to speak. James couldn't move, couldn't scream. He just sat there, frozen, staring at this thing hovering outside his window. And then it spoke, not with sound. James said he heard it in his head, a voice, dry, rasping, speaking in a language he didn't understand, but somehow he knew what it was saying. You took my face. Give it back. James didn't understand. He hadn't taken anything. He just looked, taken photos. That's it. The figure reached through the window. A skeletal hand, long fingers. James watched it reach toward his face. He couldn't move, couldn't look away. The hand got closer, closer. He could smell it now. Not rot. Something else. Flowers. Sweet. Sickly. The hand touched his cheek, and it was freezing, like being touched with ice. James screamed. The figure vanished. The cold disappeared. The room was empty. James turned on every light in the room. Checked the window. Nothing there. No footprints. No marks. Just the empty night. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, he checked his camera. The photos he'd taken at the cemetery were gone. Not deleted, just gone. The files were corrupted. When he tried to open them, they showed nothing but static, except for one photo, the last one he'd taken before leaving. It showed the cemetery, the bamboo cages, the skulls, and in the background, standing among the trees, was a figure, blurry, but definitely there, watching him. James deleted every photo from that trip, left Bali 2 days early. He said he still has nightmares, dreams where he's back at the cemetery, and the dead are waking up, climbing out of their cages, walking toward him. That story is disturbing, but it's not uncommon. A lot of tourists report similar experiences after visiting Trunyan. Nightmares, sleep paralysis, the feeling of being watched. Most of them brush it off. Jet lag, stress, too much sun. But the locals know better. They'll tell you, the dead in Trunyan are awake. They see you when you visit. And if you disrespect them, if you take something that doesn't belong to you, even just an image, they'll come looking for it. Our second story is from a guide. Let's call him Ketut. He's been taking tourists to Trunyan for over 20 years. He knows the protocols, knows the rules, and he follows them strictly because he's seen what happens when people don't. In 2018, Ketut was hired by a group of 4 European tourists, 3 guys and a girl. They wanted to see the cemetery. Ketut took them across the lake in his boat. When they arrived, he gave them the usual warnings. Don't touch. Don't take anything. Show respect. They all agreed. They walked to the cemetery. Ketut showed them the tree, explained the tradition. The tourists were fascinated, taking photos, asking questions. Everything was fine. Then one of the guys, let's call him Marco, started joking, making fun of the bodies, saying it was disgusting, calling it primitive. His friends laughed. The girl told him to stop, that it was disrespectful, but Marco kept going. Ketut warned him, told him the dead can hear, that he needed to show respect. Marco laughed, said it was just superstition. Dead bodies couldn't hear anything. Then Marco did something unforgivable. He walked up to one of the bamboo cages, reached inside, and picked up a skull, held it up like he was performing Hamlet. His friends took photos. Marco was laughing, pretending to talk to the skull. Ketut shouted at him to put it back immediately. Marco ignored him. He was posing for more photos, treating it like a joke, and then the skull moved. Not in Marco's hand. The jawbone shifted, opened, wider than it should be able to, and Marco screamed. He dropped the skull. It hit the ground and cracked. Marco was holding his hand, staring at it. There were marks on his palm, 4 deep scratches, like fingernails had clawed him. But the skull didn't have fingers. It was just a skull. Ketut made them leave immediately. He performed a small prayer, left an offering, apologized to the spirits, but he knew it wasn't enough. The damage was done. They got back in the boat. Marco was quiet, pale. His hand was bleeding. The scratches were deep. His friends were trying to calm him down, saying it was probably just thorns from a plant, that he'd scratched himself when he dropped the skull. But Ketut knew better. He'd seen those marks before, on other tourists who disrespected the dead. They weren't scratches from thorns. They were marks, claims. The dead had marked him. Ketut told Marco he needed to see a Balian, a traditional Balinese healer, get a cleansing ceremony, get rid of whatever had attached to him. Marco refused, said he just needed a bandage and some antiseptic. His friends agreed. They thought Ketut was trying to scam them, charge them for some fake ritual. Ketut took them back to their hotel, told them one more time, go see a Balian, get cleansed. Don't ignore this. They ignored him. 3 days later, Ketut got a call from the hotel. Marco was in the hospital. He'd been found in his room, unconscious, covered in scratches. Not just his hand, his whole body, arms, chest, face, deep scratches, like he'd been attacked, but he was alone in the room. The door was locked from the inside. When Marco woke up, he told the doctors he'd been dreaming. The same dream over and over for 3 nights. He was back at the cemetery, but it was night, and the dead were walking, climbing out of the cages, surrounding him, and they were all reaching for him, touching him with their bone fingers, scratching, clawing, trying to pull him down into the ground with them. He said every time he woke up, the scratches were worse, fresh ones appearing every night. Even when he was awake, he could feel them. Cold fingers touching him, scratching. He couldn't see anything, but he could feel it. The hospital couldn't explain the scratches. No medical cause, no allergic reaction, no self-harm evidence. Marco's friends finally took him to a Balian. The healer performed a cleansing ceremony, burned incense, made offerings, recited mantras. The healer told Marco he'd angered the spirits of Trunyan. They'd marked him, claimed him. He was lucky they hadn't taken him fully. The scratching stopped after the ceremony. But Marco left Bali the next day. Ketut heard later that Marco still has the scars, and that he refuses to talk about what happened. Ketut still guides tourists to Trunyan, but now he's more strict. If anyone shows even the slightest disrespect, he ends the tour immediately. He won't risk it, because he knows the dead are watching, and they remember. Now you might be thinking, okay, those are tourists. They didn't know better. They broke the rules. But what about the villagers? What about the Bali Aga people who live there? Do they experience anything? The answer is yes, but they don't talk about it. Not to outsiders, not to tourists. But if you know someone from Trunyan, if you ask the right questions, they'll tell you stories. Like the story of Wayan. He's a young man from the village, in his mid-20s now. In 2019, when he was 22, his grandfather died. Wayan loved his grandfather, raised him after his parents moved to Denpasar for work. His grandfather taught him everything, the old ways, the traditions, the respect for the spirits. When his grandfather died, Wayan helped prepare the body. They carried it to the cemetery, laid it under the Taru Menyan tree, placed it in one of the bamboo cages. Wayan said goodbye, made prayers, did everything correctly, but he couldn't leave. He stayed at the cemetery after everyone else left, just sitting there, staring at his grandfather's body, crying. He didn't want to leave him there alone. It felt wrong. His grandfather had always been surrounded by family, and now he was just lying there under a tree with strangers. The sun started setting. One of the villagers came back and found Wayan still there, told him he needed to leave. Now, you don't stay at the cemetery after dark, ever. It's the most important rule. Wayan left, but that night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his grandfather, alone, cold, and he made a decision. He was going to go back, just for a little while, just to sit with his grandfather one more time. He left his house around 1 a.m., walked down the path to the cemetery. It was dark, no moon, just his flashlight cutting through the black. When he reached the cemetery, he turned off his flashlight. He didn't want to disturb anyone. He sat down near his grandfather's cage, and he talked to him, told him stories, memories, things he wished he'd said before his grandfather died. He sat there for maybe 20 minutes, and then he heard it, movement, the sound of bamboo creaking, shifting. He turned on his flashlight, and he saw them, the other bodies, in their cages. They were moving, not a lot, just small movements. A hand twitching, a jaw opening, an eye, one that shouldn't be able to move, rolling toward him. Wayan froze. The bodies kept moving, slowly, like they were waking up, stretching. And then one of them sat up, an old corpse, mostly bones. It sat up in its cage, turned its skull toward Wayan, and spoke. The voice was dry, rattling, but it was speaking Balinese. Wayan's language. It said, "You shouldn't be here. The living don't belong here at night." Wayan ran. He didn't say goodbye to his grandfather. Didn't grab his flashlight. Just ran. Straight back to the village. He burst into his house, woke up his aunt, told her what happened. She wasn't surprised. She told him what everyone in the village knows, but doesn't talk about. The dead in Trunyan aren't fully dead. Not in the way people in the rest of Bali understand death. The Taru Menyan tree doesn't just absorb the smell. It holds them, keeps them in a state between death and whatever comes after. They're aware. They can see, hear, speak, and at night, when the living are gone, they move. They're not hostile, not usually, but they don't want the living there after dark. It's their time, their space, and if you intrude, if you disrespect their space, they'll make you leave, or they'll make you stay. Wayan has never been back to the cemetery at night, and he doesn't talk about what he saw, not to outsiders. He only told this story to a close friend, who then told me. But here's the thing. Wayan's not the only villager who's seen the dead move. It's common knowledge in Trunyan. The elders know. The Balians know. They all know the bodies wake up at night. It's why no one goes there after dark. Not even the people who've lived there their entire lives. Our fourth account is from a paranormal investigator. A team from Jakarta came to Trunyan in 2020 to investigate the cemetery. They'd heard the stories, wanted to document it, prove or disprove the legends. They got permission from the village elders, which is rare. Usually the elders refuse overnight requests, but this team was respectful. They made proper offerings, agreed to follow all protocols. The elders reluctantly said yes, but warned them, if anything happens, leave immediately. Don't try to interact with the dead. The team set up equipment just after sunset. Cameras, audio recorders, EMF readers. They positioned themselves just outside the cemetery, under the tree, but not directly next to the cages. They wanted to observe, not interfere. For the first few hours, nothing happened. They recorded ambient sounds, temperature readings. Everything was normal. Around midnight, the temperature dropped, not gradually, all at once. It went from about 25 Fahrenheit to 15 degrees in minutes. Their breath started fogging in tropical Bali in August. Then their equipment started malfunctioning, cameras shutting off, batteries draining even though they'd just been fully charged. The EMF readers spiked, all at once, across the entire cemetery. One of the team members, a woman named Rina, was monitoring the audio feeds. She stopped everyone, told them to be quiet. She'd heard something on one of the recorders, played it back. It was breathing, slow, ragged, like someone struggling to inhale, but there was no one near that microphone. It was positioned between two of the bamboo cages, no living person anywhere near it. They kept recording, and then they heard voices, multiple voices, whispering, speaking in Balinese. The team leader spoke Balinese. He listened. His face went pale. He told the team they needed to leave now. They started packing up, quickly, but one of the guys asked what the voices were saying. The team leader didn't want to answer. Finally, he told them. The voices were arguing, debating, about whether to let the team leave or keep them there. They grabbed what they could and ran back toward the village. When they reviewed the footage later, they found something. One of the cameras had been left running It captured thermal imaging of the cemetery for about 5 minutes after the team left. On the thermal camera, you could see shapes, human-shaped, heat signatures, moving inside the bamboo cages, standing up, walking around. At least 7 figures, moving freely, interacting with each other. But when the team went back the next morning to retrieve the last camera, the bodies were exactly as they'd been the night before, in their cages, still, motionless, decomposing normally. The team published their findings online. Some people believe it. Most think it was faked, but the team members stand by it. They all saw it, heard it, felt it, and none of them will ever go back. Our final story is the most recent and the most disturbing because it involves a disappearance. In late 2023, a solo traveler, a woman from Singapore, let's call her May, was visiting Bali. She was adventurous, liked going off the beaten path. She'd heard about Trunyan and wanted to see it, but not during tourist hours. She wanted the real experience, the authentic one. She hired a guide to take her across the lake, told him she wanted to stay until sunset, see the cemetery at dusk. The guide refused, told her it wasn't safe. She offered him extra money, a lot of extra money. He still refused, so May decided to go alone. She took a public boat across the lake, asked locals for directions to the cemetery, walked there by herself in the late afternoon. She spent about an hour there, taking photos, videos. She posted some of them to her Instagram. The last post was at 6:23 p.m., a photo of the Taru Menyan tree at sunset. The caption said, "Staying for the full experience. This place is incredible." That was the last anyone heard from her. When she didn't return to her hotel that night, her friend in Singapore reported her missing. Indonesian police searched the area. They found her backpack near the cemetery. Phone, camera, wallet. Everything was there, but no sign of May. They searched the lake, the forest, the village. Nothing. She'd vanished. The villagers told police what they tell everyone. Don't go to the cemetery at night. The dead don't like visitors after dark. Police thought it was superstition, kept searching. 3 days later, a fisherman on the lake found something. A piece of fabric, torn from a shirt. It matched what May had been wearing. The fabric was found floating in the lake, about 50 meters from the cemetery. But there was no other trace, no body, no signs of struggle. The official investigation concluded that May probably fell into the lake in the dark and drowned, that her body hadn't surfaced yet due to currents. But the locals don't believe that. They think she stayed too long, stayed after dark, and the dead claimed her. Because here's the thing, her last Instagram post, the photo of the tree at sunset, if you look closely, in the background, behind the tree, you can see something, a figure. It's blurry, but it's definitely human-shaped, standing among the bamboo cages. And it's not one of the corpses in the cages. It's standing, upright, watching her. May never saw it, but it was there. And now, so is she. Somewhere. So what's really happening in Trunyan? From a scientific perspective, the Taru Menyan tree is a mystery. There's no known botanical explanation for how it would neutralize the smell of decomposition. Some researchers think it might release a chemical compound that masks odors, but no one's been able to isolate it. The tree is unique to that location. Transplanting it fails. Cuttings die. It only exists there. So either the tree has properties we don't understand, or the entire phenomenon is psychological, a mass suggestion. People expect the bodies not to smell, so they don't notice the smell, even though it's there. But that doesn't explain the accounts, the movement, the voices, the disappearances. You can't explain Wayan seeing bodies sit up and speak with mass suggestion. You can't explain thermal cameras capturing human heat signatures moving around a cemetery full of corpses. And you can't explain May. She was alone. No one to influence her. No one to create mass hysteria. She just vanished. I think the villagers are right. I think the dead in Trunyan aren't fully dead. The Taru Menyan tree isn't just absorbing the smell. It's holding them, keeping them in a liminal state, between death and whatever comes after. They're aware, conscious, waiting. During the day, they're still, silent, playing dead, because that's when the living are there. The tourists, the villagers, the people who bring new bodies. But at night, when the living leave, the dead wake up. They move, they talk, they interact. It's their time, their world. And if you're there when you're not supposed to be, you're intruding. You're trespassing in the land of the dead. And sometimes the dead decide you should stay. If you ever go to Bali, you can visit Trunyan. The cemetery is open to tourists. You can see the bodies, the tree, the skulls. It's legal. It's allowed. Just follow the rules. Don't touch anything. Don't disrespect the dead. Don't take anything with you. And don't stay after dark, because the dead are watching, and they remember who visits. And if you break their rules, they'll come for you. Not right away, maybe not for days, but they'll come in your dreams, in your reflections, in the quiet moments when you're alone. And when they do, you'll understand. You'll understand why the people of Trunyan leave their dead in the open air, why they don't bury them, don't burn them, because the dead in Trunyan don't want to be buried. They don't want to be forgotten. They want to stay. They want to watch. They want to wait. And they're very, very patient. Thanks for watching. If you've been to Trunyan, if you've experienced something you can't explain, share it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Hit subscribe for more real stories from across Asia. Stay safe out there. And remember, some traditions exist for a reason, and some places belong to the dead.